It is my great honor to introduce our speaker, Amy Root. Amy has been a speaker for our Brain Injury Association of North Carolina Family Conference. She has spoken to local support groups. She has written articles for our Starting Point magazine, and she has presented the family perspective to many of the certified brain injury specialist training classes we've had over the years. In their second year of marriage, Amy's husband, Adam, suffered a life-threatening injury that changed their lives in a split second. His diagnosis and recovery seemed hopeless. Amy has learned how to fight for the quality of life, not just life itself. In the last 10 years of Adam's continued recovery, she began helping to increase the quality of life for those who have survived a catastrophic injury and for their caregivers. So I now give you Amy Root.
Well, thank you everyone so much for letting me come into your living room and share with you tips and tools and strategies on how to bring community into your living room and ultimately into your recovery. But first, a little bit about me. My name is Amy Root, and I am a passionate family advocate. On the picture on your screen to the right is my entire world. My husband, Adam, and I have been married almost 13 years in August. And our beautiful soul of a daughter, Mackenzie, will be 20 next month and is studying crop and soil science at NC State. I just basically tell people she wants to play in dirt the rest of her life. You might be wondering, well, what do I do and who do I work with? I work with healthcare professionals, helping them to increase their job and career satisfaction by understanding I was getting ahead of myself, by helping them understand how important and vital it is to treat patients outside of the box and as individuals. And also the importance of bringing family into the journey, because we all know nobody likes peg in the hole therapies. 1.7 million individuals will be diagnosed with brain injury this year. The diagnosis is the same, but the recoveries are so individualized, and the treatments really should be as well. I also work with families, helping them to increase their quality of life and teaching them how to approach life as therapy, also helping them find and utilize resources within their community that will help the recovery process, and to establish plans of care that matter and that will work. Because after all, medical therapies don't last forever. It would be nice if they did, but if you start to build a therapeutic lifestyle, it can last forever and progress can be made daily. So a little bit about today, what we're going to discuss. I'm going to share with you how I got to be where I'm at today, a little bit about my journey. I'm going to share with you how come community is so important and what do you do about it. I'm going to share with you a little bit of what community can look like after quarantine and how to build it. Tools and communication. We'll recap a little bit and then we'll have our time of Q&A. In the last, you might be wondering how I received my education. Well, unfortunately, it's been all hands on. In May 15th, 2010, Adam wrecked on his motocross bike at a track here in North Carolina. He suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, a diffuse axonal injury, and a subdermal hematoma. It basically meant that his brain was swelling, that it was sheared into 2 pieces, and that there was bleeding throughout it. But after 10 months of being unresponsive in a coma, he started to show signs of waking up. And in the last 10 years, Adam has relearned how to walk 3 times. He's relearned how to communicate by writing and talking twice. And in 2018, he underwent his 15th, 16th, and 17th brain surgeries. But I can say that through Adam's perseverance, every single day we are seeing miracles and progress. After 2 years of Adam in a hospital and rehab settings, I finally got to bring my man home, and I was very excited about that. But 6 months after we were home, the reality of how much our life really did change started to take its effects. Isolation, loneliness, and exhaustion really began to take its toll on me, and I felt like I just wanted to give up. I began to feel so completely mentally and emotionally drained. And some days I felt like I just couldn't even go on. But from the outside looking in, it seemed like we had it all together. We were getting out and about, we were creating new normals, and we were trying to fall into some routine. But really, I was doing everything I possibly could just to hold my family up. And on the inside, I felt abandoned by friends and family and completely alone. And it was strange because in the beginning of the journey, it seemed like all of our friends wanted to help. They kept reaching out from text messages and emails and phone calls, asking what they can do and how they can help. But I was completely lost. I was just trying to survive and make it day by day. So I had no idea how to answer their request or what they could do to help. And it wasn't until it was too late and so much time went by that I really, really needed the help. But by then, it seemed like nobody was around because so much time had passed. And I began to get really frustrated, especially when I would watch people's social media and I would see how much their lives were still moving on. Yet my life seemed like it was at a standstill. I felt like my life was unraveling and standing still at the same time. And I didn't understand why my friends weren't asking if I needed help. How come they couldn't see that I was dying on the inside? And then I got to thinking, well, I didn't really ask anybody for help, and I haven't really been telling them what's been going on. And if I'm really, really honest, I didn't really know how to ask for help because I still didn't know what I needed. I finally got brave enough to ask our friends for help. But it looked a little bit like this. I threw up a help wanted sign, but with no job description behind it. So the responses that I got when I asked for help looked a little bit like this. I got excuses, flat out refusals, or no responses at all, which continued to leave me feel like I was defeated and depressed. And I, again, just wasn't sure how I was going to go on. And it wasn't until I had some really good friends sit me down one day for a chat. And I was surprised by what they said, because she said to me that it wasn't that they didn't want to help, but the reality were they didn't know how to help because they were afraid and scared. They didn't know how to handle Adam if he had a medical emergency like a seizure, or when they saw him agitated or frustrated, they weren't sure they could handle that. And the worst part was they didn't know how to communicate with Adam, which terrified them even more. This was such a unique perspective for me because I just thought that they were ignoring me. I had never taken into consideration that it was fear. But they said that if they would get some training, that maybe they would consider jumping into our journey. So I took note of that and I began to make some lists. I started to list out our goals. I listed out the goals I had for Adam in therapy. I listed out my personal goals of, just time that I wanted by myself and some goals for our household. I did the same with our needs. I listed out what Adam's needs were, the needs we had as a family, and the needs that we had as a household. I then began to also look at our friends and family, and I began to take note of their talents and how they might actually play a part of Adam's recovery. And I also paid attention to Adam's attention span. What would it look like for every task that he did? And how much time could he really work with someone on that task? But I definitely heard what my friends said. And they said that they really would feel more comfortable if they were trained. So I realized how necessary it was to train our friends and family. And so I brought in professionals into our home to do so. We've done this multiple times now where we bring in therapists that are working with Adam and our local police department. For those that are unfamiliar with our journey, you can check it out on Instagram at Root Ramblings, and it explains a little bit more detail about our work with the police officers. But this allowed therapists to come in and teach our friends how to communicate with Adam, how to keep Adam safe, and how to deal with his agitation, keeping themselves safe and Adam safe, and also how to deal with medical emergencies and what to do. Through this training and the first few trainings, we realized our friends really did enjoy the gatherings that we created. So we started doing a few more, some potlucks, some get-togethers. And what I noticed from this was the stories that were being exchanged of how they communicated with one another, but with Adam, and some of the projects that they've done with Adam. And I saw confidence being built in our friends through these stories. So I decided to take it a little bit further. And I created our Root for Adam community team. I am happy to tell you today that we have 45 members of our community team. This number fluctuates, it goes up and down depending on what our needs are. But we have people with different skill sets that do different things. And some are hands-on and day-to-day with Adam, and some are completely behind the scenes that you'll never see. But they're a phone call away at 2 o'clock in the morning when I need somebody to pray because Adam's had a seizure. Or if I need a gallon of milk or a dozen of eggs from the grocery store. All I know is I never walk this journey alone anymore. We now have 45 additional family members. In the last few years, Adam's community team has done some amazing things with him. But on a weekly basis prior to our quarantine, Adam participated in weekly guys' nights, community outings, household repairs, man projects, and community events. And most of the time, it's been without me being present, which is pretty amazing. But then, when I thought I had it all figured out, the coronavirus made its appearance. I think I skipped a slide. No, I didn't. Sorry. Then the coronavirus made its appearance, and we all found ourselves in quarantine. And I honestly began to panic, thinking that everything that I've worked for and created for Adam in the last 8 years was going to unravel, and the progress that he made, I was worried was going to go away. But instead of panicking, I decided I would go back to the drawing board. And what I did was I asked myself, how can I bring my community into my living room through the internet with fresh and new ideas? Well, I really like to use the acronym SMART when I'm setting goals for Adam and our house. And it looks something like this. This was invented by Edwin Locke. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, obtainable, relevant, and time. I'm just going to focus here on a few. When we're assessing how we can obtain Adam's goals, I like to make sure that whatever I'm going to put in front of him, he can be 90% successful at. We know that if Adam has that success rate, the chances of his brain making those new connections to stick is huge. So that's how I measure obtainability. I also ask myself, is this task life relevant? Like I mentioned in a few slides back about the peg in the hole, that's great for measuring fine motor on a therapeutic level, but you can do the same thing using things around your house that are life relevant. Once I've established what the goals are and the tasks behind them, I was ready to ask my friends to help me build a new community team. And I was overwhelmed by the responses that we received. So much so that I've had to actually slowly trickle in the responses that we received. I usually like to introduce Adam to one task every few weeks. And when I had sent the email to our current community team members, so many new ideas were coming to play that I've had to schedule them out all the way through July, which is pretty exciting. But I want to bring your attention to this picture right here, because anybody can do this. And what I did is I reached out to every healthcare professional that's worked with Adam in the last couple years and a few of our close friends. I asked them to put together a challenge for Adam, something that he would have to practice, but then eventually could become independent in. This particular task was sent to us by an occupational therapist that worked with Adam 2 years ago. She combined his love of coffee with a task. And for those that don't know my husband, Adam, I often joke that coffee is his love language. And she provided a step-by-step instruction on how Adam can make a cup of coffee using the AeroPress at home. This took several weeks of some hand holding where I've had to stand next to him and talk him through it, and several weeks where he fumbled through on his own. But a total of about 10 weeks later, I can honestly say Adam can make a mean cup of coffee. The great thing about building a community team online is you can invite people into your journey that live thousands of miles away. And you can either approach them with ideas you have or ask them to bring ideas to the table. You'll be surprised what you can come up with and what you can build in a short amount of time. These are just a few of the things that we've created in the last 4 months. Let's just go over a few tips if you're considering building a community team for yourself, or if you're considering sharing this idea with somebody that you work with. Number 1, do not try to add too much at one time. It can get really exciting and you get excited about it and you want to add more into the schedule, but I encourage you to just add a little bit at a time. Again, you want to hit that success rate and you want it to be fun, not daunting or overwhelming. If you're not used to working with community teams or bouncing around from activity to activity, then to start with 1 or 2 at a time is probably best. If you reach out and you are turned down, don't give up. It just means that that person isn't the right fit for the season you're in, and that's okay. Trust the process, that who you ask, if they say yes, then they're the right fit for that season. Start small. Sometimes I think that we have this idea that we need to set up a time on the computer for 30 minutes to an hour for a task. But the truth and the reality might be that just a quick 10-minute phone call with somebody who lives in a different state where you or your loved one can ask just 2 questions, that might be enough, and that might be a good starting point. And last but not least, this will not happen overnight. It will take some time and some perseverance, but I guarantee you it will be worth it. But now comes the fun part, because I cannot wait to show you some ideas and ways that we've taken our goals, both therapy and personal, and we've created them online in this season of quarantine with our community team. This particular slide here is Adam playing a game with several friends online. In the last several months, he has played games such as Categories, Would You Rather, Family Feud, Pictionary, and the list continues. This particular video I'm about to share with you is Adam playing a quick game of Family Feud with a few friends.
Would you rather your dream job or live in your dream location?
I'd rather have my dream job.
Dream job?
Yeah.
What would you rather have? Would you rather have your dream job or live in your dream location? You can leave that in the chat box if you'd like. One of our goals for Adam during this season was to work on improved communication, reading, and comprehension. But I found that most beginner readers or learning to read are all geared towards children. Trying to get Adam to read a children's book was next to impossible until I came up with an idea. And I approached our friends who live in Texas, and I asked them if Adam can FaceTime them and read a story to their kids. I honestly thought that this was going to be an epic fail or a flop, but it turns out to be one of Adam's favorite times of the week. If you choose to implement this for yourself, I will suggest that you just mute the phone on the other end, because the kids will get distracted and they will get a little loud and rowdy. But when I mute it, Adam seems to not notice, and he keeps just reading on. Another one of our therapy goals in this time frame has been to continue to work with Adam on following directions and instructions and increasing how many he can do at a time. We also continue to work on his right side, scanning to his right. He has a right side hemianopsia, which means he can't see out of the right side of both of his eyes. He also, in the last several years, just overcame his right side neglect, which means he completely ignored the right side of his body for several years. So we work continuously to engage that so we don't lose the progress made. I did this through making Play-Doh with one of our community team members. And I placed all of the things he needed to his right so he would have to scan all over. This ended up being quite a success. But let's go ahead and take a listen into this video.
No, I don't see any.
Well, I have a lot of lumps in mine, so I better get through.
I guess so.
This community team member happens to be my sister, who lives 3,000 miles away from us. And it was so great to see her in the kitchen with Adam working together. Prior to our time in quarantine, Adam really enjoyed working out with his physical therapist, who would come to our house 2 times a week. And it was really, really difficult to find ways to keep Adam physically active when we started staying at home so much. And I found myself needing to get very creative. So I started looking actually online at ways that I could work with Adam and keep him physically active. And I found this hashtag Wednesday Wellness. And what I saw behind it was all of these challenges that would pop up on Wednesday, simple challenges. When I looked a little further and found the resource behind it, it happened to be Success Rehabilitation in Pennsylvania. They specifically work with people with brain injuries, and on Wednesday, they post about 5 to 10 different exercises that Adam can easily do on his own. Take a picture of him doing the exercises using the hashtag Wednesday Wellness, and tagging Success Rehabilitation has allowed us to build an actual relationship with this rehab center. We have participated in online challenges with them, and we are in regular contact with them, which has been a pretty fun way to bring a new community team member into our journey that we would have never have met otherwise. You might be wondering or asking yourself, well, this is great, but there's no way I'm going to be able to get people to sign up. Well, I have a how you can do that. How do you get people to join your community team? I have found that the #1 thing to do in order to get people to join is be very specific with your request. And that is, if you use the acronym I showed you on the previous slide that says SMART, the #1 thing for S is specific. And you can come up with your specific goal and a task behind that. Once you have that, you can approach the right person and ask them, hey, can you do this? For example, when I was asking my sister to make Play-Doh with Adam, I reached out to her and I asked her, can you make this particular recipe of Play-Doh with Adam? It was a complete specific request, and it was easy for her to jump in. She even said that if she had to think about something she was going to do with Adam on her own, she probably wouldn't have and would have just not responded. #2, identify the time commitment behind it. I am constantly surprised when I hear people respond with, that's it. I often will tell people when I'm making time with them for Adam that it's only going to be about 20 to 25 minutes. But I think when I reach out and originally ask for people to help, they have this idea that it's going to be hours and hours of a commitment. So identify the time behind the request of what you're asking. I personally provide an online or a phone call of a Q&A ahead of time. That allows whoever might be joining our team or wants to do a task with Adam, they can ask any questions, no questions off limits, or they can address their concerns ahead of time. Sometimes during this Q&A process, they decide it's just not a good fit for them, and that's okay too. Again, trust the process that the right people will come in at the right time. And last but not least, make sure you send any information ahead of time. For example, I always send a communication email ahead of time. It's a detailed document that has the best ways to communicate and what to do when Adam gets stuck. And for example, like again with my sister making the Play-Doh, I just sent the recipe to her ahead of time. So it doesn't help, it keeps her from having to look for the right recipe. Remember to remain flexible because not everything is going to go as planned and not everything is going to be a good fit. So just remember to completely remain flexible. It's going to be a fluid process. And some things that you thought would be a complete fail are actually going to be something that's going to work really well. And the things that you thought would be an awesome win end up not working at all. And that's okay. Again, just remember to be flexible and fluid. You might be wondering how we keep track of all of this. How do we keep track of Adam's schedule, the activities, and how do we communicate with our team? Well, we use Google. I absolutely love Google. It's a one-stop shop for us. We go ahead and we email our potential community team members or all of our community team members. Once they have officially signed on to become a team member, we give them access to our Google Drive. Here allows those documents to live, like the communication document. We have an ongoing discussion document of things that have worked with Adam, things that don't work for Adam. We keep some spreadsheets on there for our community team. And we share it out with everyone who participates on that team. We also use Google Calendar. This allows our team to see Adam's schedule and to be able to schedule things on his calendar as well. And last but not least, we use Google Photos. That way, when Adam's working on activities and I'm not around, they can upload photos and I get to share in the joy as well. A few items that you're going to need in order to create your own online community support team is, and since you're already here, you already have those, and that is a computer with internet access. But I also find having if you're using a phone, to use a tripod as well. This allows you to be hands-free when you're working on tasks. This particular tripod I purchased on Amazon for about $15 or $16, and it comes with a remote, which has a nice feature. But for those of you who have heard me speak before, you know I love my Amazon wish lists. If you come across things that you're gonna need in order to complete your goals and tasks, but you're not sure how you're gonna get those resources, I really encourage you to build an Amazon wish list. And then to those people who have not responded to your request to work with your community team, you can send them this Amazon wish list. It's one last chance to get them involved. And I encourage you also to send it out in email and post it on your social media. You're going to be completely surprised by how many people are going to be able to help you and fulfill that list. And before you know it, every item off that list is going to be gone. But remember, this is going to take perseverance. It is going to take a lot of work to build this, but it will be worth it. Because we know that when we fight for our quality of life, it's always worth the battle. Building our community team has allowed me to be the wife and mother I want to be, and not always Adam's full-time caregiver, because now I share that load with all of our friends and family. And this leaves me feeling very fulfilled and happy. So let's go ahead and do a quick recap of our talk today. We all know how incredibly community is. It's so important to have community around us, and it will help you recover. Community is possible even when it seems impossible. So don't give up, just reach out, learn how to ask for help. It will take work to build. It's not going to be something that will happen overnight, but persevere and keep hanging on and trust the process. Keep in mind your goals. Find a way to set goals that works for you. Just because the acronym SMART works for us might not work for you. So find a way that you can track your goals and how you can break them down. Be flexible. I can't tell you this enough because things will not go as planned, or things that you thought would work won't work. Just remain flexible. And remember, not everything you try and not every person you bring into your journey will be a good fit. And that's okay too. And last but not least, focus on what increases your quality of life. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to want to feel good about your day. And remember, you can do this. It might seem daunting at first, but once you get started and once you have success in your first activity, it gets addicting and you're going to want to continue to add more and more. And if you enjoyed this presentation, you will want to join us on Thursday at 1 p.m. for part 2 of this. Part 2 will be what happens if you've reached out to your friends and family, but it just might not be a good fit. What do you do then? I'm going to show you how you can bring community into your living room, even in spite of that. So I look forward to seeing you then. If you take away any ideas that today and you're going to post them, we would love for you to tag us on our social media or give us a follow on our Instagram. I update our Instagram pretty regularly, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. So we'll go ahead and open it up for questions now, and I'll turn on my camera.
So all of our participants can turn your cameras back on if you would like to join us for this final Q&A. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but I'm going to unmute you all. I'm going to try.
I've got 2 cents to add. Great,
Okay.
great presentation, Amy. Wonderful graphics. Super job. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Things that you could add? Hey, Jill.
Hi, just ditto what was just said. This is my first time to go into anything in regard to brain injury, and I just really appreciate this. I'm out running an errand and have been sitting in a parking lot through this, so thank you.
Where do you live, Jill?
Live in Matthews, North Carolina.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, if we don't have other questions, raise your hand or unmute yourself. If we don't have other questions, we'll go ahead and end our presentation, and I'll be sending out a link. We're going to be trying to put this link on our website.
Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you.
All right. See you next time.
Thank you, Amy. That was great.